In the past several years, there has been a massive influx of turbocharged E36s, E46s, and other cars powered by M50 series engines, even in cars other than BMWs. Thanks to cheap prefabricated turbo kits, the depreciation and value of these cars, and a very helpful development community with projects like the MS4X dev team and OpenMS41, these are now some of the most tunable cars out there. There's a lot of research to be done, however, to properly convert your engine from being naturally aspirated to being turbocharged. This video is to guide people in the right direction to make the process easier. There are three crucial parts of a turbo setup that are not to be cheaped out on: the fuel injectors, MAF sensor, and the wastegate if you're using an external wastegate. Injectors. The stock injectors simply won't work with a boosted setup. They aren't able to flow enough fuel to meet the new requirements of the engine. You're going to need fuel injectors with a lot more flow capacity, ideally ones that flow 440 cc's per minute or more. There are a lot of fake knockoff injectors out there. A set of them is very likely to have variations in flow and spray pattern, causing the engine to run poorly with them no matter what. Some of the most commonly faked ones are Bosch 42 pound per hour, 440 cc's per minute, green giants, as they are often referred to, and Siemens Deka 60 pound and 80 pound injectors. To avoid buying knockoff junk and wasting your time and money, buy injectors from a reputable seller. You want each injector in the set to have a serial number, which will be different on each individual injector. You also want to buy injectors that your tuner will be able to find calibration data for. So you should generally talk to your tuner before you buy the injectors for your build if you aren't sure whether calibration data for them is available or whether they are made by a reputable manufacturer. The ones I usually recommend to my customers are 60 pound per hour original equipment injectors for a Porsche 997 GT2. MAF sensor. A lot of people try to use the stock MAF to cut corners and save money. This is the sensor your engine computer is using to measure the air mass coming into the engine in order to calculate engine load, and then use that calculated value to navigate your fuel injection tables, ignition timing tables, camshaft timing tables, and many others. Not something you want to cheap out on when your engine is now under a lot more load than it was capable of before. The stock M52TU and M54B25 MAF is capable of measuring around 778 kilograms per hour of air. That's just plain not enough. The M54B30 MAF is capable of measuring 1,024 kilograms per hour of air, which can be enough of a limit for a lot of 2.5-liter turbo builds in theory, but the problem is that neither MAF sensor is designed to measure compressed air. In a blow-through configuration, the factory MAF just won't work properly. You want a slot-type MAF that could properly measure compressed air, and ideally for it to be in a metal housing. Hands down, the best MAF for such an application, in my opinion, is the PMOS MH30 HPX MAF assembly. You can get away with some other MAFs like a B5 Audi RS4 MAF sensor, but it was still not designed for a blow-through configuration, and it comes in a plastic housing. The MAF is another thing you always want to discuss with your tuner before you buy one. Wastegate. Quality external wastegate resulting from research and development, manufactured in a facility with strict quality control and testing measures set in place, costs hundreds of dollars. For a lot of people, it can be tempting to buy a cheap knockoff for many times cheaper, especially when they're running a $200 to $300 Chinese turbo. The wastegate is what keeps boost controlled to a safe, set level. A cheap eBay knockoff wastegate is likely to have rough casting, a warped diaphragm, and a lot of things literally crooked. The valve guide board, the valve sealing angle, and the mounting of the diaphragm housing. Should it fail to open, it could cause an overboost and therefore substantial engine damage. Even if you're using an internal wastegate on a cheap turbo, it's a good idea to buy a high-quality internal wastegate actuator that'll fit your turbocharger. At the very least, with an internal wastegate on a Chinese turbo, you should use an air compressor to check that it opens properly when you set the preload. And another good idea is seeing whether you could port it for better flow if the port is much smaller than the flapper. A lot of people go for a 38mm wastegate for their build because of cost, but I highly recommend going with something 44mm or bigger to avoid boost creep. Personally, I use a Precision Turbo PW46 46mm external wastegate. Boost leaks. Now that the car is turbocharged, the intake is going to see positive pressure. It's necessary to ensure that all connections and fittings are secured tightly, so that they won't leak out the compressed air that you're trying to feed to the engine. Vacuum lines should be zip tied or clamped. Couplers and boots should be clamped with T-bolt clamps. It's not a good idea to use stock factory worm clamps on large boots and couplers. Stock rubber boots should be replaced with silicone ones that can handle the positive pressure without deforming, cracking, or bursting. Check out this clip to see what kind of stresses couplers and clamps can be exposed to under boost. A little tip before starting an engine with a newly installed turbo. You should unscrew the spark plugs and turn the engine over for a bit with the starter. This will build oil pressure and pump oil through the feed line of the turbo, so it'll be primed with oil when you actually start the engine. Then you can get the car tuned and enjoy some boost. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope this video was helpful, and if you enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button.